Hey you guys, welcome back to RPO Restorations. In today's video, I decided to talk about the last gasp of General Motors mainstream full-size cars. This was a body line that could be found from 1991 to 1996 in Chevrolet, Buick, and Oldsmobile dealerships. A body line that could trace its origins back to a major GM program that occurred about 15 years prior and proved to be a rare win for GM in the 1970s, and a body line that ceased to exist in the mid 90s as consumer taste shifted to SUVs and minivans. I'm talking about the 1991 to 1996 full-size GM B-body lineup. In 1991, GM redesigned the sheet metal on all of their full-size B-body cars, including the Chevrolet Caprice and Caprice wagon, the resurrected Buick Roadmaster sedan and Roadmaster estate wagon, and the Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser wagon. The car shared a 115.9-inch wheelbase with a length of 215 inches for the sedans and 217 inches for the wagons. Engines were generally shared across the lineups as well, with fuel-injected Chevrolet V8s under the hood. While the cars appeared fresh and fairly modern by the standards of the time, being updated with OBD2 computers, fuel injection, and more modern interiors and exteriors, they continue to generally rely upon the same B-body chassis that was released for the 1977 model year. This stems from a GM decision back in 1985 when the original intention to convert the cars to front-wheel drive in the mid-80s was scrapped, and plans were put in place to give them one more refresh in the early 90s. I suspect this was done simply to satisfy consumer demand. The cars were still selling fairly well, and there was a certain older demographic who were in their 60s and 70s at this time who simply could not get on board with smaller front-wheel drive cars. The redesign, however, proved to be the last for the B-body, and it wound up being the end of the road for the full-size station wagon, as at the end of the 1996 model year, the entire line was discontinued. Let's take a look at some of the offerings from each division, starting with Chevrolet's, the Caprice. Debuting in April 1990 as a 1991 model, the Caprice featured a redesigned exterior and interior, but powertrain options were essentially a continuation of what was offered in the 1991 box style. Standard was a 305 cubic inch throttle body injected LO3 V8, putting out 170 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. The LO5 5.7 liter V8 would be offered as a carryover for the police packages, but it would be made available starting in the 1993 model year to the general public. A 6-cylinder was also offered for taxi and other fleet uses. ABS brakes were standard. It would be offered in two trim levels, the base Caprice and the upscale Caprice Classic, which would replace the Brogue model. A wagon was also offered, badged as the Caprice Classic Estate Wagon. It came standard with wood grain trim on the exterior and seating for up to 8 with the optional rear-facing back seat. Body panels were shared with its Buick and Oldsmobile cousins, and eventually a slightly detuned 5.7-liter LT1 8-cylinder would become standard, making the last wagon produced by Chevrolet a little more fun. In 1994, the Impala SS model made its debut, featuring the same LT1 engine, albeit with cast iron instead of the Corvette aluminum cylinder heads, pushing out 260 horses. This special trim level would also see body-colored trim, a special grille and ornamentation, aluminum wheels, and a special interior. I'll be doing a specific video on these in the near future. It's worth noting that the redesigned Caprice won Motor Trend's Best Domestic Car of 1991. However, the car quickly floundered in showrooms, with a big chunk of its sales coming from fleets. It's my opinion that the Caprice really never had a personality. It was kind of plain looking even with the new body and trim options, except for the Impala, which looked good. Now, let's take a look at Buick's redesigned B-body, the Roadmaster. Debuting for the 1991 model year along with the Caprice was Buick's version of the B-body, the Buick Roadmaster. Roadmaster being a name Buick used up until the late 1950s. Initially offered in wagon only, called the Buick Roadmaster Estate. A sedan would also be offered starting in the 1992 model year. Both offerings shared a lot of the Caprice's looks, including body panels and some interior components. The Roadmaster definitely had a more upscale feel, however, with extra chrome and a more 1980s style interior with wood grain paneling and velour seating. The wagon would also share many components across the lines, including a formerly Oldsmobile exclusive Vista roof glass roof. The wood grain trim could also be deleted from the Buick model if that's what the buyer wanted. The Roadmaster line would share powertrain offerings with its Chevrolet cousins, meaning that the Roadmaster would also see the LT1 engine under its hood. The plush and kind of stuffy Roadmaster definitely made a pretty cool sleeper if you could find one. This particular generation of the B-body is also interesting for the Buick if you look at the sizing of its car lineup around this time. The Park Avenue, which was Buick's flagship big car, was actually 6 inches shorter during this era. The Buick Roadmaster wasn't a big seller for Buick, with just 200,000 sedans and wagons sold over its 6-year production run. And speaking of slow sellers, let's take a look at Oldsmobile's B-body offering at this time, the Custom Cruiser. With only a 2-year production run, the final version of the Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser station wagon proved to be the last rear-wheel drive V8 offered by Oldsmobile. Offered for only the 1991 and 1992 model years, it really didn't sell well, with only about 13,000 being produced. It shared much of its external sheet metal with its GM wagon cousins, but did have a pretty Oldsmobile-esque front fascia grille. It also had some unique interior trim components. Also unique was that it wasn't offered with wood grain trim. Buyers could choose from several two-tone paint colors instead. Given that it was discontinued after 1992, it never received the LT1 V8, and Oldsmobile never produced the sedan version of the B-body, deciding instead to keep the front-wheel drive 98 as the largest sedan in their lineup. I think that this fact is fairly telling, as at this point in time, the Oldsmobile Bravada was starting to sell. So I think Oldsmobile saw the writing on the wall with rear-wheel drive cars and wagons and decided to shift their focus over to front-wheel drive models and SUVs. Overall, I think the redesigned B-bodies are pretty interesting cars. The Buick Roadmaster with the LT1 is especially starting to grow on me, and I'd love to find a mint condition wagon floating around somewhere. What do you guys think? Did GM misread the market when they released these things, or did taste just change that quickly? And have you driven an LT1 powered version? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching.